Hey there, I'm Jamie Wilhelm. I am a self-published independent author, and I'm about to read for you from my own book in just about a moment. I want you to know that I am self-published, meaning no one else sees my books. I'm self-edited, meaning there's probably some mistakes. And I even make my own covers. So in a moment, I will set you up over there where you can take a look at that. I'm reading today from chapters 3 through 6. And just one more second here before we get into it. My books are romance books, which means they're not for children. So please keep that in mind. Also, the first 1 through 3 chapters have already been posted, so if you've missed that, go ahead and jump on the channel, go back and listen to that first. I'll be right here waiting when you come back. And then please go ahead and take that sexy finger down there and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more. In just a moment, we'll begin. Okay, one last thing before I get started. I am absolutely not a professional reader, even though these are my words and I swear I wrote them. I will mess them up, so just bear with me. We're beginning with chapter 4. All of my books are available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. Please enjoy. Cole took Samantha and Tori out for dinner at a Mexican restaurant and ordered them fish tank margaritas. This was the joke, as the glasses were large enough to house a couple of goldfish. They talked about the proposal party and how Tori helped with the ring and the wedding ideas and plans and so on. When dinner was finished, Samantha and Tori left the restaurant hugging each other, and Cole followed them. He placed both girls giggling into the back seat of the car and played the radio loud as they sang and danced in the back seat. "I love you guys," Tori hollered over the radio as they drove. "You know what?" she continued. "I love me. I've missed myself lately, and it feels good to feel like myself today." "We love you," Sam laughed. "What the hell are you talking about?" Cole turned down the radio, but the girls continued to yell their conversation anyway. "I've been so mopey this past year. I mean, I thought I was over him, but I knew I wasn't," Tori said. "Yeah, well, it takes time when you're in love, babe," Sam told her. For sure," Tori agreed. "Last night I asked Paul to stay in my bed." "Oh my God, Tori," Sam said, shocked and laughing. Cole's hands gripped the steering wheel. He felt all of it for Rod. "Nothing happened. Well, nothing much. But he reminded me, you know," Tori said, waving her hand in the air and over her body. "He reminded me that I'm fun and wild and sexy." "Woohoo, sexy," Sam said, "smoking hot." "Damn right," Tori agreed with her. "Always. I've spent too long being upset over someone who saw me and didn't say 2 sentences. Tori held the number 2 on her fingers to show Sam. "But he was never fazed by me. If he can do that, then why should I cry over it anymore, huh? Why, Cole?" "It's been a long year for sure, Tori," Cole said. "You're telling me I haven't had a man touch me in almost a year and a half. Do you know what that does to a girl? Having a man of your dreams that you trust with your entire heart and want to be with forever rip you to shreds and leave you behind?" She settled in her seat as Sam grabbed and held her hand. "Then have no one touch or ever want you after, because they all know him and they don't want to be the next guy." "That's not true," Sam said. "Plenty of guys want you. You just couldn't see them, sis." "Yeah, well, Paul wants me." "I begged him for sex last night," Tori said. "You what?" Sam shrieked. "I did. I begged him a couple of times. I know he likes me, and I know he wants more," Tori told them. "What did he say?" Cole asked, balling a fist in his lap. He turned me down until I cried, and then told me only if I swore we would still be friends, because he knows I'm in love with somebody else. I eventually gave up begging, and we messed around a little bit until I fell asleep on his shoulder. Nothing really happened. He was a gentleman who would have only taken me if I insisted, I think. I'm not sure, though, because I was insisting, and he talked me out of it, Tori explained. Cole relaxed his hand. He knew Paul had given Rod the impression that he and Tori were friends, and that he cared about her, and this version Tori told sounded like it went along with that. Paul must be a saint, Sam laughed. How many men could lay with the incredible Tori and not take advantage? He's a good friend. I told him to give it a little bit, and then ask me out for real. Told him I needed a few days to get my head straight, and then I wanted to see if there was a chance for anything more than friends, Tori said. Cole helped the girls into the apartment, but because they decided they wanted another drink, he took Tori's to theirs instead of her own. They had another stiff drink, and Cole watched as Sam started nodding in her chair. Come on, baby, time for bed. He lifted Sam from the table, and Tori nodded that she was fine to sit a bit. After he settled, Sam and Cole walked back into the room and sat with Tori. How is he for real? Tori asked Cole. Okay, I think, Cole answered. Cole, Tori said a little more demandingly, remember the Tori that pretended to be drunk for you when you needed Sam and had no other way? The one that texted you so you would be able to navigate out of the friend zone? Level with me. How is he for real? Cole smiled, remembering the hell he went through, trying to get Sam to want him more than just as a friend. Tori had sent texts and steered Sam to him. She was even the reason they got together, when they did. Okay, Cole said, nodding to her. It killed him seeing you this weekend. I'm certain he still loves you. It wrecked him seeing you with Paul, though we assured him you were just friends. Cole raised an eyebrow because he thought it was true when he said it. But he still insists he did what he had to do and could not fix it or take it back. He never told me why. Just said it would be better for both of us to discontinue our relationship. Isn't that the coldest thing? Tori pleaded with Cole. Do you know more? Cole felt the weight of what she asked. He did know more. He knew Rod thought it was bad to leave her states away when he could only be here 4 or 5 months for a weekend, and he knew that her trying to come to see him was getting in the way of her classes. He gave her up, trying to lessen her burden. Cole shook his head because in all his loyalty was for Rod, and he swore to protect Tori from this information. I know he cares about you very much and wishes it were different, but I also know you cannot live under that hurt forever. Maybe someday Rod comes around and realizes how stupid he was. Maybe he doesn't. Tori, sweetie, you have to move on and live your life. If it is with Paul or someone else, you gotta do it. I wish you could save your heart and yourself for him. I really do. But it's tearing you apart, and that's not good. Cole walked Tori to her room and helped her to her bed and turned out the lights and locked the door when he left. Tori reached for her phone to send a message to Paul. Thinking about you tonight, Tori. Tori sat at her counter with her makeup spread out and curling iron plugged in. It had been 3 weeks from Cole and Sam's proposal, and 3 weeks from the last time she saw Rod. Today was her date with Paul. She promised him a real date, and she intended to put herself fully into it. She had gotten her hair done this week and a manicure. She bought a new top and strappy sandals and even painted her toes. This morning she and Sam went for massages, and at this moment she could not have felt better. It was her first day with a guy who had already seen her naked. Well, kind of. She was actually a tad nervous because Paul would be dating Paul and not friend Paul, and she didn't know what differences that might be. At exactly 7, there was a knock at the door, and Tori opened it to Paul. He stood with a single purple rose. She let him in and took the flower, kissing him on the cheek before placing her flower in a vase. So far, Paul was very much like regular Paul. He opened the door for her and placed his hand on the small of her back as they walked to his car. He opened his car door and helped her in before closing the door behind her. He asked her about her day as they drove to the restaurant. Paul headed toward one of the smaller towns, away from campus, and pulled into an Italian restaurant. The building was small and rustic looking. Tori thought it seemed authentic. Once inside, she noticed the cream walls and old beams and tables with white cloths and single candles lit. Paul gave his name, and they were led to a corner table. On the table there were 2 bottles of wine, and within minutes a waiter with bread and oils and vinegar came and greeted them. The waiter set ice water on the table and then explained the house wines were complimentary, and the choices were red and white as he pointed to them on the table. Paul pointed at the menu, and the waiter nodded and hurried off to the kitchen. "Have you ever been here before?" he asked as she was wandering over the menu. "I apologize, I have a kitty trying to jump all over the table." "Okay." "I have not, but you know I love Italian food," she answered. Paul smiled. "I do, and this place makes all the pasta fresh to order, and all the sauces are made from scratch. This is as close to eating in Italy, according to my buddy, as you can get." "It smells amazing," she told him. Soon the waiter returned with a plate and a large ball of mozzarella on it that lay in some tomato sauce and had basil leaves sprinkled around. He put the cheese between her and Paul, and then set another basket with bread, croutons, and crackers in it on the table. Paul took his knife and sliced through the middle of the mozzarella ball and separated it into 2 sides. And when he pulled it apart, the small pearls of smaller cheese balls poured out and on the plate with their way. Paul lifted the bread from the basket and collected one of the pearls and squashed it on the bread, followed by a drizzle of the tomato and whey, and finally a piece of basil, and then handed it to Tori. She smiled and took a bite, and the freshness of the ingredients danced on her tongue. "Wow, that is so fresh and sweet," she said, holding the other half of her piece in her hand, waiting for Paul to try his. He nodded as he chewed, agreeing with her. Paul poured Tori some wine and sat fairly quietly enjoying the cheese plate for dinner. Tori ordered a ragu with fresh pasta, and it was delicious. She shared it with Paul and still took half of it home. He had ordered lasagna, and Tori tried that too. It was all amazing. After dinner, Paul drove them back to the apartment. The drive was quiet, and the radio played softly. Tori started to feel like this was going in the wrong direction. She and Paul had been friends for so long that was natural. They never ran out of things to talk about, but there had been very little conversation tonight, and she was almost home. Paul pulled into the parking lot and shut off the car and smiled at Tori. He leaned back into his seat, placed his hands on his thighs. He sat looking out the window for a moment and then decided to say something. He had gotten over this hump, or he was going to be doomed. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, turning to face her. "Well, you look very nice too," Tori said with a smile. "I'm having a difficult time here, Tori," Paul admitted. "I'm not sure where to blur the line between my friend and date right now." "Yeah," Tori said, "I am too." "What are we going to do? Because I feel like if I walk you up and leave, the opportunity is missed. Yet it's hard to put the actual moves on my friend now that I have the chance," Paul admitted. "Let's have a sidebar," Tori said. "What?" he asked. "A sidebar. Let's step out of this date for a moment and talk as friends," she explained. "Okay then," Paul agreed with a smile. Tori closed her eyes and then opened them. "Paul, thank God. So I'm on this date with this guy, and I really like him. But it's been quiet and difficult to have a conversation because we don't know where to start. What should I do?" she asked with a smile and a wink. "Do you have something in common? Or anything recently funny or new to talk about?" Paul asked, relaxing in his seat. "No, not really. Not that he wouldn't already know," Tori said. "What's going on with you? How's your date going?" "Same, I guess. I feel a lot of pressure to make it great. So I don't want to mess up this chance and stay in the friend zone forever," Paul told her. "I truly doubt it's your only chance. I bet you're putting too much pressure on yourself," Tori offered. "I want this friendly, easy conversation, and I would like to enter into a romantic part of a possible new relationship," Paul explained. "That makes sense. I'm worried about trying to enter that romantic part, because what if it doesn't work and I lose my friend too?" Tori asked. "I bet if you are that good of friends, then you won't ruin it by exploring other options." "Not when he cares about you," Paul told her. "So you think I should just throw myself at him?" Tori asked with a giggle. Paul threw his head back and laughed. "I think I may have too much vested interest to answer that as your friend," he offered. "But if you're ready, then let him know." "Okay, I'm going to get back to my date now," Tori told him. Tori turned back in her seat and looked out the windshield. "Would you like to walk me to my door?" she asked. "Of course," Paul said. He climbed out of the car and opened her door. Again, Paul placed his hand on the small of her back. As they walked to the door, she turned and placed her back on it. "I had a nice time. Thank you," Tori said, fumbling with her keys. "So did I," he told her. Tori stood there for a moment with Paul in front of her, and then she reached out her hand and placed it in his. Tori slowly drew her hand toward her waist with his in it until he took a step, and she looked into his eyes and smiled. Paul held her hand and placed the other on her cheek and leaned in and took her lips. It was a soft kiss, and it grew quickly. Tori released his hand and brought both arms around his neck. She hung on to him for a minute or so, and then slowly let go. Paul took a step back and smiled again. "Can I take you out another time?" he asked. "I'd like that," Tori said. "Why not call me soon?" "I will," Paul told her. He waited while she unlocked her door and stepped inside. Once he heard the chain slide into place, he turned and walked away. For their second date, Paul took her to a riverfront restaurant where they ate on the patio with lights strung overhead. This date was more casual and lighthearted. They had an easier time talking. It felt more like she was out with her friend than a date. When Paul returned her to her apartment, Tori climbed on his side of the car and kissed and talked and tried to feel closer. He walked her to a door for another goodnight kiss and left her once again when she was inside. Their third date ended the same way, and as Paul stepped into the parking lot, he pulled out his phone. "Forget something?" Tori asked as she answered. "I think so," he admitted. "Let me come in." When he got to the door, she stood inside holding it open, and Paul walked in. When she closed it, he stepped toward her carefully, pinned her to the back of it. He lifted her chin and started kissing her. He kissed for a few minutes and even pressed his tongue. Tori answered and opened her mouth to allow him to deepen the kiss. Finally, he let go and stepped back. "What the fuck?" he asked, scratching his head. He stood there another minute and stepped back in and kissed her harder, and placing a hand to her breast. Tori wrapped her arms around and kissed him back. Paul released her and rested his forehead on hers. "I don't fucking understand," he nearly whispered. Okay. "I don't fucking understand," he whispered. "Talking and hanging out and dating is great, but when it comes time to put the moves on you, Tori, I just feel weird." "I kinda do too," she admitted. "I thought it was nerves at first, but as we go on, I can feel it in you too." Tori stepped away and grabbed 2 beers from the fridge. She handed Paul one and they sat down on the couch. "I want you so bad all of the time, until it's time to try. And then I almost feel like I want my friend back. And I'm confused," Paul told her. "I feel that way too. We have turned this dating into us as friends. And then when it comes time to maybe get physical, it doesn't feel right," Tori said. She leaned her back into him and took a long sip of her beer. "I want you, and I fantasize about you, and I enjoy the memory of the night that you stayed in my bed." "Did we put too much pressure on it?" Paul asked. "Couldn't tell you," she answered. "I'm trying not to ask the friend's question, because I don't want to give this up. I wanted you for so long," he admitted. Tori took the last swallow of her beer and stood up. She reached for Paul's hand and led him to her bedroom. She stopped by her bed and turned and kissed him. She imagined the feel of his tongue on her clit and how much she wanted him to take her last time. She stepped back and pulled her shirt over her head and then pulled his mouth to hers. When she stepped close to Paul, she could feel the reminder through his pants, and she knew he wanted her. Paul reached around and unhooked her bra, letting it fall to the floor, and stepped back long enough to pull off his shirt and grab back onto her. He unbuttoned her pants and pulled them over her bottom, and then sat her on the bed, pulling them down her legs. Paul climbed out of his jeans and crawled up, joining her on the bed. They lay in nothing but underwear, kissing and panting. Paul sucked at her nipples and kissed her neck and pulled her panties and dove into her folds. She moaned and pleaded and agreed with his every lick. He applied pressure and kept pace until Tori cried out and released on his tongue. Paul climbed back up on the bed and asked her if she had protection. "I'm on the pill, and there are condoms in that drawer," she said, pointing to the nightstand. Paul pulled one out of the drawer, ripped it open, and kissed her as he put it on. He knelt and licked a few more times and then hovered over her where she could feel him at her opening. Are you sure, Tori? He asked. I'm sure, she said, and wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him to kiss her. Paul entered her slowly at first, as she was tighter than he had imagined. He figured a year plus was probably the reason for that, and then chased the thought from his mind as he began to move. His thrusts became faster and more urgent as he did. Tori grasped his back and gripped his arms as moans and groans escaped her lips. Oh yes, she cried, as her muscles clenched and her nails dug into his skin. She bathed him in her wetness, and he groaned through it. Paul stopped, taking a few deep breaths, and kissed her before he began again. This time he sped up and delivered harder as Tori moaned and clung to him. Again she erupted under him, and within seconds heated as well. Paul collapsed on top of her, breathing heavily and trying to get a grip. After a bit, he rolled over and collected her to his chest. Paul? Tori asked. Yeah, he answered. Do you think we are friends or more? She asked him. I think we are friends who tried very hard to be more, Paul answered. I agree. But you are very good in bed, so I will miss that, she said with a giggle. He poked her side and she wiggled. Agreed. We could be great in the sack, darling, but our love is friendship, and not likely to be anything more. Will you stay with me tonight? She asked. Of course, but get some clothes on so we can be friends in the morning, he said, and slapped her bottom. Chapter 5. One quick reminder. All my books are available on Amazon and on Kindle Unlimited. After Paul left, Tori decided she would keep their night a secret. She would not share it with Sam or Cole because they had such a vested interest in Rod. Even in all her anger, she did not want him to learn that she had been with someone else. She had full right to be, and no idea if he had been dating at all, but she didn't like the thought of him knowing that. The next weekend after their swim meets, Tori planned to help Sam with her wedding planning. She and Cole had been engaged for a month and had chosen a date. So she wanted Tori's help to start getting things organized. When Tori arrived at their apartment, she found Sam in the middle of the floor with a pile of magazines and a notebook in her lap. Hiya, chica, Tori said, letting herself in. Thank goodness you're here. I'm going in circles, Sam told her. Tori stood with one notebook in her hand. I've got the best way to get organized right here. Is Cole here? No, he went out a bit ago. He's bringing us lunch in a while, Sam told her. Awesome. So put that stuff down and grab the notes you made. I'm going to ask you questions and you can answer them, and we will see how much you already know so we can figure out what you don't, Tori explained. Sam grabbed her soda and her notebook and slid to rest her back against the couch. Okay, Tori started. Date? September 4th, Sam answered. Town? Tori asked. Here, home, Sam answered. Home? Why do you think that? Tori asked. Because it's where our parents are, and I wanted to use the church they took us to. Our family is there. I will list both options, but I honestly thought you would say his home or here, Tori explained. He doesn't care about it being his hometown. He has one uncle out of state, and his parents were not hometown people. Remember, Cole went off to boarding schools and so on. He loves his parents, but it is not a close family like ours, Sam told her. I still love to hear you say our parents and our family, Tori admitted. Sam squeezed her hand. Tori's parents adopted Samantha officially in their first year of college. Sam was over 18, and she took Tori's last name, making them officially sisters. Tori thought it was the coolest and bravest thing Sam ever did. "It's just a verification of what always was, sis," Sam told her. "All right," Tori continued. "Church or hall?" "Church," Sam said. "Time?" Tori asked. "Not sure," Sam answered. "I'll put a question mark and highlight the things we need to answer. Maid of honor, best man?" "You and Rod." "Sorry, hon. Afraid he's going to come up a bit through this," Sam said, reaching over and placed her hand on Tori's arm. "I know. I've already come to grips with that," Tori said and smiled at her sister. She did know, but she had not come to grips with it. Her mind was flooded with the thoughts that she was going to have to walk down the aisle with Rod, but she could do anything she had to for the sake of Samantha's wedding. The girls continued to scroll down the questions Tori had printed off for her. How to prepare for your wedding. Cole showed up and brought cheeseburgers and fries and milkshakes. He called it a study break and teased that Sam didn't need to study too hard because the answers to all of the questions on that day would either be "I will" or "I do." "So you are in the less than 6 months boat, huh?" Tori asked Cole between bites. "She doesn't want to wait," Cole answered, rubbing Sam's leg. "I kind of thought this would be simple to put together," Sam admitted. "Oh, girl, it can be. You have to settle on a town and a church so we can reserve it. That's the only thing that needs to be pushed to the front of the list. Then we can get dresses, and that means you'll have everything you need to get married. Cole will take care of the rings and the license, right?" Tori directed. "Yes," Cole said, pulling out his phone to make notes. "Once we have a town decision, then I can file with the county." "I want to go home," Sam injected. "Good," Cole said. "I assumed you would." "Me too," Tori said, raising her glass. "If it isn't your home, Cole, then it should be ours. I didn't think of it that way when we talked earlier, but I see it now." "The dress is the next big thing then," Sam said. "I will give you my credit card for that. I don't want you to think," Cole was explaining, and then Tori interrupted. "Nope, Dad is taking care of that part, Cole, and the reception. We talked last night to be sure that they were understood before making plans today. Mom will come dress shopping with us," she told Sam with a wink. "Dad asked that you call him this weekend and he will go over the details with you. But the important thing here is that Sam has parents that want to assume a very traditional role in her wedding." Cole nodded. He was very familiar with Mr. Whittaker and did not doubt that he was suddenly off the hook for most of the cost. "Looks like you get to plan a great honeymoon," Sam said and kissed him. Cole looked at Tori for a moment, and when she raised her eyebrow, he spoke. "I need Rod around, Tori. I know it's not ideal for you, and I am sorry. I just can't do that without my best friend." "I have no doubt, Cole. There is no issue for me where he is concerned. It's almost 2 years by then. If I can't make it through a day with an ex-boyfriend from 2 years ago, then it is I who have the problem. Your wedding will be amazing, and I want you to have your best friend there. I will be fine, I promise," Tori told him and stood for a hug. Tori helped Sam finish the list, and then they set up to go dress shopping the next weekend if Lori was able to come to town for the day. Tori left the list with Sam so she could focus on the things that she was not sure of, and they could talk more about it as the weeks went on. When Tori returned to her apartment, she closed it up, locked the doors, and ran a bath. It was time to get all her anxiety out of the way so that she could truly be there for Sam. Tori did not want to feel upset by Rod's presence, and she certainly didn't want it to have a cloud that hung over her sister's wedding. She sipped a glass of wine and then poured another and rested it on the side of the tub. It was time to break the silence, and she picked up her phone. "We need to talk. Are you available in half an hour or so? Tori." "I'm free all evening. You can call when you are ready. Rod." Tori took a deep breath and sat her phone down and lifted her wine glass. It was gone after a few big drinks, and she poured a third glass and sat with it while relaxing in the bath. She could not think of a better way to have this chat than with a little wine and a bubble bath to relax first. When she finished, she used her lotion and dressed for bed, though it was not all that late. She took her phone to the couch and dialed his number 45 minutes after she sent the text. "Hello?" Rod answered. "Hi," Tori said. "Everybody okay?" he asked. "Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to worry you," she answered. "Figured you would have been specific if there was a problem," he responded. "They set a date," she said, knowing Rod would understand who. "I heard that a bit ago," he replied. "So I can't let whatever issue may be left over here cloud that day, Rod," she explained. "I don't want that either," he told her. "For the sake of the two people I love more than anything, I'm asking if you and I can be friends." She spilled it all out. "I think that's the responsible thing to do for the sake of our friends," Rod answered. "For real? You can't just say you will try rather than a textbook I feel nothing answer? Kind of smug, I think," Tori said. "I don't know how to answer you in a way that sounds friendly, Tori," he admitted. "Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It is why you and I are going to have to call once or so a week and text like we are buddies until the awkwardness goes away," Tori told him. "Are you sure you want that?" he asked. "Nope," she said, matter of fact. "But it's what has to happen. So we are not a couple of asses during and ruining their day." Rod chuckled. "I'm not an ass," he told her. "I disagree," Tori told him with a lighter tone. "I'm glad you decided to set this on a better path, Tori," Rod said. "Me too. It takes a great deal of strength and energy to hate you," she explained. "Ouch," he answered. "Truth," she said, remembering that they used to say that a lot with "I love you" at one time. "I suppose it is," he told her. "Those two are going to have barbecues and babies and all kinds of shit, and we will both always be there. We need to find a way to move past whatever so we can enjoy our friends," Tori explained. "For sure," he answered. "So what's been going on?" "Well, today I spent a while helping Sam after swim meet," she answered. "How was the meet?" Rod asked. "Good. I didn't place, but these younger girls seem faster and stronger than me. It's difficult to place anymore," she told him. "Makes sense. Wrestling was the same as I got closer to senior year. It's not like high school where the older guys are stronger," Rod offered. "Yeah, but I think it's also more about me not worrying about the meets or competition so much. I'm more focused on my next steps toward a career rather than a meet," she guessed. "I think that's why college lets you compete for 4 years. After that, they figure you will either move ahead with it on your own or lose interest in pursuit of your future," Rod told her. "Makes sense," Tori said. "How are you? What's new?" she asked. "My internship is wrapping up, and between class and work, I find little time to sleep," he admitted. "Sounds unpleasant," Tori said. "Sometimes. I just get what I need when I can, but I love the job side. I've been shadowing a pediatrician for about 6 months now, and have made it a point Made it to a point where I am seeing return patients and remembering them, Rod explained. Bet that feels rewarding, Tori said, remembering how much Rod loved kids. He teased her that he wanted a dozen or so, and she would shriek and disagree. She would have done it, though. She would love to be the girl having Rod's 12 kids. She smiled as she thought to herself. Are you still at the children's hospital or private practice? Both. I was placed with a doctor who has a practice and then also works at the hospital. Some of his patients are regulars at the hospital and receive therapies there too, Rod told her. I'm glad to know those kids have someone like you looking after them, she said honestly. The phone was quiet for a moment. Rod? Tori asked. Yes, he responded. I think that is enough friend call for now, she said, sighing as she did. Sure, he answered. Text me sometime. I will. Thanks for agreeing to take these steps with me, she said, trying to avoid dropping a tear. Thank you. One of us had to try to work it out. I'm glad you called, Rod told her. Tori hung up without another word. She grabbed her throw blanket and pulled a tissue and curled up in a ball and cried. She could feel her chest slicing open and her insides pouring out. There was no clarity. She had no idea why he decided he didn't want her. There was no closure, no reason. She did, however, gain some self-worth by putting it aside for Sam's sake, and that felt good. Before long, Tori lay asleep, cuddled in her blanket on the couch. Rod sat holding his phone for a long time. He was uncertain if he wanted to crush it in his hand or throw it across the room. The last time he spoke to Tori was to tell her he thought it was best for them to not be together anymore. This thought stabbed him several times in the back now, and he leaned back in his chair away from the text he had been studying. Well, not studying from the moment he had received her text. Rod barely had time to sleep. He told her so on the phone. Would she see how it was better for her to not be tied to a guy who had no time whatsoever and hadn't had since he left for this internship? He knew given the option, Tori would simply follow him. She would have given it all up to wait around for him to fall into the bed beside her. Eventually, she would have to see that didn't work, and then the relationship would have been over anyway. If it had gone that way, it would be Rod's fault for ruining her future. Rod slammed his fist into the punching bag hanging in his room. He had done that a lot lately, especially since he saw her. He had no real proof that Tori was still crushed all these months later until he saw her. He hated that he hurt her so much. He hurt him too. Rod still loved Tori. He had no interest and no thought of another woman in the time he had been away from her. Talking to her today. Rod paced the floor. He wanted to get in his car and go to her, right now. He found himself grabbing his keys. He drew a breath and set them back on the table. Not only did he have a shift tomorrow, but classes, and more shifts next week. Nothing has changed. He still didn't have the ability to find the time to love Tori. Need a minute, Rod. Any time, Cole. Rod placed his phone to his ear, in time to hear Cole answer on the other end. What's going on? Cole asked. She called me, Rod said. Who, Tori? Cole asked, coughing on a drink. Yeah, Rod admitted as he slumped down into his chair. Wow, for what? Cole asked. She said it was time to find a way to be friends for the sake of your wedding and all future things that are likely to put us both around where you two are concerned, Rod told him. Very insightful, Cole said, feeling his heart break a little for Tori, knowing how hard it must have been to make that call. It feels so fresh. I could hear the sadness in her voice, even as she asked me how I was doing at work and school. Rod continued. I wanted to touch her. That's rough, man. Of course, you could just fix it, Cole reminded Rod. You know I can't. First, she would uproot, and second, she pretty much hates me. I would hate myself. I do hate myself for hurting her, Rod said, talking in a circle. I had my keys in my hand. I was ready to just go to her. Then the thought of tomorrow's shift in class. Reality check for sure. Are you going to be able to have a friendship, Rod? Cole asked. Probably not, Rod chuckled. But I will make sure she feels like it is and doesn't know the difference. Besides, she says she will continue to call occasionally to make sure we don't feel awkward when we do all gather for your wedding. She's amazing for caring enough to make sure this is not an issue, not only for us, but for all of us. I would hate to think that things need to be separated just so that we can have a different person at this or that function. Atta girl, Tori, Cole said. She is stronger than I gave her credit for, Rod admitted. So if you aren't going to reignite, then stick to her rules and become friends, even if it kills you. It's the least you could do for her at this point, Cole said, almost warning his buddy. Was that you or Sam? Rod asked. She has been and is becoming a sister. I feel like I should protect her. Plus, I've been here watching her try to live without you, and it hurts us both, man, Cole told him. Thanks, Cole. I knew you would be reasonable. I appreciate the pep talk. And the wrist slap, Rod said, laughing a bit. Any time, Cole told him. Tori woke to a knock at her door. Hello? She heard Sam call from the hall. Coming, Tori called, throwing her blanket to the side and stuffing her tissue into the couch cushion. She opened the door and Sam walked in. I know, Sam said. She crossed the room and hugged Tori. I heard about your phone call. Tori placed her hand on Sam's shoulders and took a deep breath. What happened? Did he just call and tell you? Tori asked. I don't think so, Sam said. Cole said he spoke to Rod and he mentioned you called. That's all. I just figured it must have been hard to do and wondered, why, sis? I just wanted to break the ice, Tori explained. I know he's going to be part of my life as Cole becomes my brother-in-law, and I wanted to find a way to be friends so we aren't bringing storm clouds to events like your wedding. I want to enjoy that, and if I'm focused on Rod, I won't be able to. That took a lot of guts, sweetie, Sam said, hugging her. It took a lot of wine, Tori said with a giggle. So are you glad you called? Sam asked. I am. I suppose it'll get easier. I don't imagine I could ever love someone as much as him, nor am I ready to move on anytime soon. But it was nice talking to him, even if it hurts like hell, Tori said, sniffing. Sam stayed with her a while, and then left for bed. I promised you chapters 3 through 6, but in real time, as real people do, I've come to notice that it's been almost an hour for the 2 chapters I've read. So we're going to call that it for this time. Again, tap that subscribe button so you don't miss the next round. Good night.